Hello, my name is Ruth Nelson, and welcome to this week's MasterCoaches Weekly Buzz and our after show, Buzz Reaction, both hosted by John Foreman. Our most recent interview with AVCA Executive Director Kathy DeBoer, she explained how the NCAA will conduct the NCAA D1 Spring Championship. She also provided a great overview with a virtual clinic convention with over 100 hours of instruction by some of the finest coaches in the world for just $2.49 an hour. What a deal, or should I say, what a steal. Don't forget to renew your membership to get your discount. Our newsflash, with only 14 states not playing volleyball this fall, we are hearing many high schools are in quarantine because of a player or a staff having COVID. Since the dead period for D1 is January 1, 2021, players get those video clips to those college recruiters for review. To stay up on high school changes, go to nfhs.org, and for junior clubs, go to jvavolleyball.org. Check out coachesinsider.com, as each week they interview a high school athletic director that provides great information on how their programs are returning to play. Want to know the updates on the 4 conferences that are playing this fall? Head over to volleyballmag.com, and guess what? Listen to Mondays with Mick. How about that? Did you know Brian Gimolero at Long Beach won 3 national championships and appeared in 8 Final Fours? Bob Bertucci, while at Temple, reached the NCAA Sweet 16 when his team upset Penn State at Rec Hall. And Mick Haley, winningest coach in USC program history, which also included 3 AVCA Players of the Year. All will be asking our guests, how do athletic directors assist their programs during these challenging times? First, let's go to former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our guest today. Mick?
Well, did you know Ruth Nelson's background includes involvement in almost every part of our game? She's played as a player in college, open ball, professionally, and for our national team. She's an AVCA Hall of Famer and has 500 plus wins coaching George Williams, Iowa, Houston, and LSU. Presently, she's designed and is running programs effectively teaching youth volleyball and training coaches with her BYOP programs and her Go Kid programs. Thank you, Ruth, for the introduction. Today, we welcome 2 gentlemen who have been who have coached volleyball at various levels, but also are athletic directors at D1 universities. Jamie Gordon is the volleyball coach and AD at Morehead State University, and Rick Cole is vice president and director of athletics at Hofstra. Welcome to our show, guys.
Thanks for having to be here.
Yeah. Yesterday it was announced that we lost another volleyball program with LaSalle joining William & Mary and dropping the sport of women's volleyball. What problems do you guys see, you athletic directors see, in this pandemic time in keeping programs functioning and moving forward, and especially moving volleyball through the fall and into the spring to play the NC2A championships? Rick, can you start off?
Sure. First of all, these are no easy decisions. That there's no athletic director in America that wants to not provide an opportunity for the men and women that they represent. And I'm sure that those programs, specifically the 2 most recent programs, right, that have had a reformulation of sports sponsorship is the nice way of saying dropping sports. But I have club players that have played at both institutions and had incredible experiences there. So, you feel for them, the current student athletes. And I think when these tough decisions are being made, they're just excruciating for everyone involved. I don't think there's a person on those campuses that are that take these decisions lightly. We're here for and because of our student athletes of all sports. We want to see them succeed in every facet of right. We're an educational organization. We use volleyball and sport as our platform to teach, right? And so, there's tough navigations going on right now. There's tough decisions to be made. I don't know an organization or an institution, let alone an intercollegiate athletics program, that aren't facing, and Jamie, I'm sure you've got some challenges like we all do, that, we're all facing these challenges of how do we navigate and remain nimble, and how do we pivot through these new times and new situations. We need to continue to have, if we look through, sometimes we need to take the lens off, look through the lens of not only presidents and athletic directors, as volleyball people, is that we have to look through the lens of how do we meet the goals and the objectives of the organization, of the institution, and how do we use the platform of sport and intercollegiate athletics to do that, right? This is all new to us, right? I mean, Jamie, I don't know how your conference is going, but we're figuring out basketball scheduling now. We're figuring out the navigation of COVID, and how do we get we're going to have every sport we sponsor playing in the spring, and that quality experience while dealing with the issues that our 18 to 23-year-old young folks are dealing with. I mean, heck, we're dealing with it at 50, right? So I think the navigation, I think the ability to communicate effectively with our staff, our coaches, and our players. It's a tough road, and every institution is going to have to respond. So, Coach, I don't know if I answered that directly because it was kind of an open view, but I do think that navigation of going from fall to spring in and of itself is challenging, let alone the financial challenges, let alone the health challenges. So I think the good work of the collective work and us learning and listening to each other. But, there's a lot of sports sponsorship reformulations happening all over the country. We're just now seeing it in the sport that we all care so much about, but it's affecting men and women, unfortunately, throughout intercollegiate athletics.
Well, I know.
I was just going to say, I agree with Rick on so much of this, and the challenge is that while we're all experiencing similar challenges, we have our very unique circumstances, and so for us, I try to keep our student athletes at the heart of all of our decisions, and then hope that what we're facing is temporary, knowing that it's going to take us a while to get out of it. And so the decisions that we make, you want to try and minimize those long-term impacts of, I think there's probably not an athletics director out there that cutting a team is probably that last option, because it is so hard to come back from that. And, I think one of the challenges right now that we try and find, and as coaches, we know we get used to doing something a particular way, and something that was a want early on now becomes a need, and we become emotionally involved or attached to that, and trying to really filter through those needs and wants. And then the other part that I think is also challenging to navigate here is that we have a whole array of spring sports that have already had their seasons canceled. And as Rick mentioned, we're trying to balance everybody playing at the same time in the spring. But we also want to protect those spring sports that have already dealt with their seasons ending, and try to minimize some of the impact on them. So there's all different challenges, and I've kind of been joking or at least coming to terms that I'm either going into a crisis, in the middle of a crisis, or coming out of one. And it's always recirculating there.
So I'll ask one more very short question with both of you, and you can just start since you finished, Jamie. But has there been additional pressure on, let's say, volleyball coaches, just to pick a sport, on fundraising with all of these financial problems? I've heard a number of coaches talk about things they've been getting into or been asked to get into. I'm wondering how you guys have seen this.
Yeah, and I think fundraising is always important. It doesn't matter what level we're talking about, if it's Morehead State or Ohio State or Texas. External funds is a big portion of what helps us operate. And so now there's a demand on that even more so, since traditional revenue streams are impacted. What I've encouraged colleagues of other volleyball coaches, but even our own coaches, is find a way to actually more get involved and identify your worth. So for us, we rely on enrollment. Institutional health is really critical to our athletics budget and our athletic department. So when the pandemic hit, we spent a lot of time calling students doing recruiting for our admissions departments and things like that. And so while fundraising may help a little bit here, I think making sure that we're invested in the overall health of the institution probably has a greater impact than some donations here and there.
And Jamie, have you had an increased effort to get your coaches to raise funds, or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we actually took on a couple of new initiatives department-wide and have asked all of us to kind of tap into some of the alumni. And there are a lot of people out there that want to help. And there's people that can help. And just giving them an avenue of which they can do that, I think, can provide some opportunities. What's
happening in your department, Rick?
Well, I mean, and I think Jamie and everybody would agree with this too. Everybody's a fundraiser. Revenue generation and again, you're going to hear me say the same corny expression over and over again. It's all of our jobs to meet the goals and the objectives of the organization being institution, department, team. At Hofstra, we have to fundraise quite a bit, and we take pride in that. And, Jamie already alluded to some of the things. I'll try not to be repetitive here, but, establishing your case for support and telling your story and why an investment in a student athlete in a men's or women's volleyball program is so pivotal and crucial. And again, using our platform. We have taken great advantage of the time we had away. We had over 800 alumni participate in Zoom meetings and gatherings by, eras, by sport. And, I only stayed on the Zooms for like 15 minutes of each Zoom to introduce myself and talk about how we're handling it, how we're responding, how our student athletes are doing, which I heard was really a good thing, because some of those Zooms lasted 5 hours because you were getting people from all over the world together. We had 800 alumni engaged, right? And we seized that opportunity to reconnect and tell the story and talk about and lay the foundation of what we will hopefully be returning and asking them to support. And we laid that groundwork and planted those seeds because not only are many of us facing modifications to budget, and again, I think Jamie said it doesn't matter what level. If you're in the Big Ten or the Pac-12, people have less revenue. We have to look differently at how we are successful. Guys, it's like getting, it's like having an outside hitter, crush the line all day and we do nothing to make an adjustment. We have to adjust or you lose, and you lose quickly and decisively. So we are telling the story that we will continue to look at every revenue we can. We did, we did the Zoom piece. We lost our golf outing, so instead of doing a golf outing on Long Island, we did a golf outing that was virtual, where if you participated, you can golf at any golf course in America. And we sent a package home with gifts. Like, you have to be creative, and whether that's through sponsorship, through the $50 donor, the $100,000 donor, every donor matters. And if we can't ask now for support, and those are going to be okay. Sometimes coaches will feel, and Jamie, I don't know how it is with you, and I know you've done this a long time, that it's not necessarily their comfort zone, that they don't think they'll be good fundraisers. I believe the contrary. They're our greatest recruiters. They're our greatest salespeople. They know how to deal and connect and ask people to come spend 4 years with them. $50 to $100,000 is a lot easier than 4 years. So I just think it's an opportunity for us to really look through a different lens and get people on board in the fundraising culture, because I understand the uncomfortable space, but we have to morph. We have to pivot in generating support.
Okay, so that's good in that end. Bob, is you or Brian up next?
Brian.
I think Brian has a couple of questions first, and then I'll follow him.
I played against that line hitter several times and thought I was adjusting. I thought as a coach I was adjusting all the time, and it seemed that translation never got to players. I don't know what that's worth, but I throw that out there. I think what you just said, I think women's volleyball players are a great possible, they have great ability to fundraise. And I think they're a great image for our university. I'm just hoping, at Long Beach State, 32 years, we saw budget cuts, we saw furloughs, we saw dropping sports. I had to raise money every year. I understand what you're going through, and it's a juggling act. I just hope that you can influence the LaSalles of this country the value of women's volleyball as and not more important than anyone else, but certainly not less important than anyone else. Anyway, after listening, I wanted to throw that out there. This year, this spring, the tournament is going from 64 teams to 48 teams, and that's a concern of mine. Can you guys both react to that? Jamie, let's start with you.
Yeah, I would imagine that Rick is going through the same thing with conferences that we've talked a lot about. Hey, we're going to do this for a year. Okay, we're making some changes to our conference schedule, but it's only for 1 year. We're changing. Our baseball has moved from 3 games over 3 days, and we're going to make this adjustment where they're going to do a single and a double header, but we're going to do it for 1 year, and that's the plan right now. But we also don't know what we're going to be facing next year. So while I think that there is every intention to return to a full field of 64, and Rick has done a great job of serving on that championship committee, but we don't know what we're going to face financially. We need a basketball tournament to go off this year. We need that contract payout. Without that, we'd be lucky to get 48 teams in next year. So, the NCAA office, they're going through furloughs, all of these challenges here. So I think there is a genuine concerted effort to maintain what we're used to. The question will be what is the environment like when we have to make that decision come next year?
And Rick, what do you think about the future there? Yeah, I echo what Jamie's saying, and having sat in the room for 4 years, it's look, the NCAA and the Championships Committee looks to provide the best opportunity and athletic experience they can through the platform of championships, right? And for a long time, the volleyball community has continued to grow this championship where it shows its value to the greater organization of the NCAA. There are lots of things, my understanding is I wasn't in the room, but there are a lot of things talked about. Will we keep the AQs for all conferences? How many at-larges will be? What will that structure look like? What will the road and the path to the championship look like? And, I'm glad that I'm of the school that believes that I do think the championship, the AQ with an at-large very important, right? Because we know that some of the leagues and regions have some different abilities than other leagues and regions. However, I think Jamie speaks well. I think, we're looking at the next 6 months. I think that knowing our value as a sport and knowing the value of what we can offer on our campuses within the league, we have to spend our energy thinking in that space because Jamie just said, like basketball, our league's going to play Saturday and Sundays. So we're going to go to James Madison and we're going to play at James Madison Saturday and Sunday. If you would have said that to a coach a year ago, can you guys imagine you would have felt the earth stop rotating on the West Coast from here, right? Because we just looked through the lens that we could never do that. Well, if I told you, you know what, basketball, volleyball coaches, you're not going on the road for 6 months. Think about that for a second, right? The things we are now faced with of just figuring out, finding a way, like Jamie said, basketball has to be successful. That tournament has to go off. That's what funds our model. That's what provides these opportunities for all sports. And I sure do hope that volleyball will get back to 64, but I think time will tell.
Yeah, I have other questions, but due to time, let's go to Bob. Bob, can you pick up from here?
Sure. Thanks, Brian. I'm going to try to combine 2 of my questions because it really has to do with some of the things we've been discussing. With the announcement of LaSalle today in our news break. And then, of course, in the men's game, Stanford dropping their volleyball program a couple of weeks ago. Rick, what are you doing right now to protect programs at your school? And what do you think needs to happen with men's volleyball to avoid additional teams from being dropped?
Yeah, first of all, let me apologize to anybody that is listening to this. Bringing 2 athletic directors that are passionate about volleyball on us, tell us to keep it short is near impossible, right? So apologies. We might want to make this a 90-minute version. But Jamie, maybe that's not fair. Maybe I'll just speak on behalf of myself.
Rick, you should come in our planning meetings. We talk a lot of volleyball. You'd have a great time.
Coach, I think this is real. It's a great question. And, you know, I wear unique hats in volleyball, right? I'm a volleyball geek. I'm passionate about it. I've been my whole life. I've got 3 kids. I'm the 5th best athlete in my family. I've got 3 kids that all play collegiate volleyball right now at different levels, different gender. And, you know, we forget to look through that lens of that 18 to 22-year-old, right, that's really living an experience. Their window of opportunity is this big, right? It's this big. And you look at a wonderful institution and the benchmark of how to be a successful athletics program at Stanford, who's looking at reshaping, you know, their athletics program, or you look at a LaSalle, right? So, you know, we've been faced with some really trying times at Hofstra financially. And, you know, I knock wood, but, you know, we've done everything we can because I believe the people are the ingredient, the most important, but the ingredient to success. So our student athletes, you can't say you're here for them and because of them and not try to do everything for them. And our staff is just, I'll put them up with anyone in the country, with all due respect to everybody on this. Like, so our retention of our staff and keeping the sports sponsorship has been important. But there's only so much that can be sustained, right? So you really have to, again, talk about your value of what you bring. Now, I'll tell you, my volleyball coach she's tremendous. We have a 5 volleyball court facility. She runs a club out of it. You know, she's works as hard as anyone. She's competitive. I pray she doesn't go anywhere. I'll extend her as long as I can. But, you know, volleyball matters here. We have a great history. We're proud of it. I think that men's volleyball in general, you know, is a unique thing, Coach, and you know that, you know, better than I. But I pray, you know, again, my son just started his collegiate career, and, you know, you look at what these things are, you know, going through. I just think we have to continue. It's not just about being great at volleyball. We have to continue to tell the great story of volleyball and show its value campus by campus and across the country, because people are going to have to make tough decisions and they're not going to like them. But there's something special about the game. We just have to be good at telling that story on our individual campuses and as collective conferences. My opinion. Sorry, Jamie, I'll let you go because I'm on like minute 92.
No, I agree. And by the way, Coach, I do have to throw in a little thing. It never shows up on my bio, but I am a proud graduate of a Bob Bertucci volleyball camp.
Hey.
So, and 2 of your, I also give credit to both Roz DeRoche and Max Gendy for somewhat corrupting me outside of the gyms. So, but anyway, you know, I think to Rick's point, and you know, one of the things that we try to do is because there are so many financial strains, and as he mentioned, you know, we're part of an institution, and a lot of when an institution is facing budget cuts, the athletic department is always going to represent a big dollar amount. And when you look at the balance sheet, we don't benefit from the revenue side of tuition. That doesn't show up on our balance sheet. Our scholarships do, but our tuition revenue doesn't necessarily show up. And so when you have something like men's volleyball, and even at fully funded, there is a significant tuition revenue being created for that institution. And I think it's very important as coaches, as administrators, to make sure that part of the story is being told, and that it's clear, and that it's clear to faculty and faculty senate and board of regents that may not get the complete picture in there. And I also think that it's an important time for us to show, as Rick said, our value as a sport, but as a coaching staff, as a department, and make sure that we're telling our stories so that we don't get some misinformation projected upon us. And you know, there's colleagues that I've spoken to that have had to make cuts, not necessarily because they were great cuts, because they had to almost show some sort of blood to the rest of the campus community that they were doing their part. And so I think it is a very important thing that we tell our story properly and that we have a complete picture of it.
Well, Jamie, I have another question for you before I bounce it over to Ruth. I'd like you to start with this one because we've been banging this question around for a while amongst us. What are your thoughts about the transfer complications that may occur, you know, in volleyball, but other sports too? with what we're going through and some decisions the NCAA has made at this point.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting to see what kind of plays out here because especially we'll just look at volleyball and forget about everybody else. But if I just look at volleyball, so for us, I've got two outsides, one who's a conference player of the year. Well, she's going to take advantage of her extra year. So now all of a sudden that shifts. Then we have everybody that's here all of a sudden has an extra year of eligibility. Well, now you're going to see some coaches that say, yeah, we're going to give an extra year. We're going to hold you on that extra year, but maybe not all of those kids. And so now you're going to see a huge flux of student athletes that have this extra year of eligibility that may have completed their degree that's normally not in the recruiting hopper. And so that's going to throw in one thing. Then you see what's unfortunately happened to the class of 2021, what's happened to the class of 2022. I have a younger daughter who's a setter. We're trying to recruit her at Morehead State, but we're not going to get her. I think she's a little too good for us, which is a little disfortunate. But I'm starting to see from that side now all of a sudden these schools that were recruiting a setter in 23, well, now that thing has changed. So I think we're going to see this big challenge in recruit and transfers. And I think, and Rick is aware of this, there's also this national discussion about what we do with transferring and how does it impact basketball. And there's this real narrative of we should be treating everybody the same. And whether a year in residency should be applied to sports that traditionally don't have it, like volleyball, or does basketball become immediately eligible? And that's kind of just gotten held off because of all of the COVID stuff. And I think there's a dialogue that's going to be happening on the national stage here pretty soon as things kind of settle in. But now I'll pass off to Rick for your kind of thought on that.
Yeah, I think you summarized it perfectly. The only thing I would add to it is that Hofstra is on Long Island, 10 minutes from a beautiful beach, 25-minute train ride to New York City. So if there is a young player that anyone on this call cares deeply about, there's AD with a separate background that will make sure well taken care of. I don't know if I violated any compliance rules there, but Jamie, if you ever need that.
And on that note, we're in God's country. It's beautiful, unbelievably safe, great place to come.
Jamie, I'm trying to get your daughter here. I know you got a great but it is.
All right, Ruth, you better jump in there.
Yes, I know. I was going to say, you guys, I feel like it's like the debate I watched last night. And I was trying to decide when I was going to. Okay, I'm going to give you a yes question, an easy yes or no. Has the National Letter of Intent still going to happen in November? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. That was a confirmation we needed. All right, now, the next one. Since the dead period is January 1, do you think, this is a two-part question, do you think that they're going to extend that dead period past January 1, 2021? And all colleges, high schools, and clubs are now all playing during the springtime. What advice are you giving your coaches about recruiting? Let's go, Jamie.
Well, it's just an opinion on the January 1st. I say yes, that it ends. I think at some point there needs to go out, and I'm hopeful that January 1st hits that. One of the things that we're doing, and I would even suggest this to coaches out there, because as Rick's talking about, we're trying to figure out our conference schedule. I've suggested to our conference, and we're looking at moving to Sunday, Monday for conference play. And part of that is we're trying to find blocks that stuff isn't happening on campus. And so that's good because Monday there's usually not anything going. But if we do a Sunday night, Monday afternoon, it then will allow our volleyball staffs to also be able to go out and recruit, maybe not the entire staff, but to be out on the road on a Friday, Saturday, maybe even a Sunday morning based on locale.
Okay, that sounds great. How about you, Rick?
Yeah, I agree with Jamie. I think it's going to get extended if I was betting, because I do think there'll be some continued implications. I'll just take a little twist, with that whole high school club thing. I would encourage in our region, we're having our club coaches and our USA regional coach region folks talk to high school coaches to get on the same page. Right? 'Cause one of the things is that battle between high school and clubs where you get seen, and this, the navigation of club is going to be so different, as we know this year too, is what tournaments go, what tournaments don't go. So I would just encourage people to really try to get engaged in those conversations, high school to clubs, clubs to high school and region.
Okay, so if one time we ever needed to get along, this is the time to get along during the springtime.
Amen.
And
Amen.
I think that, Mick, we're ready to go. They answered my questions, and I didn't ask them about recruiting, the ones I had. All right, Mick,
Jamie, can I jump in for a second here? Jamie, Bob still has his clinics and his camps, so you can get back in. And
All right. Only if
for
Max
both-
and Roz are returning as
They were great staff, that's for sure.
And
right,
and the other thing is, for both of your daughters and son, we have 160 years of experience in this group. If we can help at all, I'm volunteering all the other three, and we'll gladly take anyone's phone call, including parents that are having a heart attack, like both of you will.
Amen.
So we're available.
hey, Brian, that's on the marketing side. Okay, now let's
All
go
right.
for you. You're closing.
All right,
you guys.
I'm going to close here, but before I do, Bob, you need to tell both of the ADs your new job title at your university.
Oh, yeah. There's no question about it. It's an enrollment facilitator and fundraiser.
So that's why
We
I
can
asked
all
you a
use
couple
that.
of the
We can all
questions.
use that right
Yes,
now.
Yes.
All right.
Well, I really like to thank both of you for being here. All of us got a lot out of that. We'll talk a little bit about it afterwards. But in closing, I don't want you to forget to renew your ABCA memberships and sign up for the virtual convention. I just did mine this morning, and I'm excited about that. But we need to do this to really help our ABCA counterpart here to lead for us during this time. Next week is going to be really exciting. Next week we have 3 ACC coaches coming in, one from each of their pods. Michelle Collier from Georgia Tech will be with us. Leonard Yellen, who just beat Syracuse twice this weekend, will be with us. And Jolene Nagel from beat Pitt. What did I say?
He said he's from Syracuse. But
Yeah, from Syracuse, beat Pitt. Thank you. And Leonard will get me for that one. And Jolene Nagel will be here from Duke, and she's really excited about not only what they're doing in the pods, but how they're handling their COVID testing and that sort of thing. So we'll be getting all that information from them. Back to you, Ruth.
Okay. Thanks a lot for both Rick and Jamie. And
Yeah,
we are
thanks,
ready.
Jamie. Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
being on.
It was fun. Thanks for having me.
Okay,
Take
our
care.
fall Master Coaches virtual clinics are now available to you, your team, or your coaches. Please head over to our Instagram, VB Master Coaches, click on our bio, and click on the virtual clinic link, or you may scan our QR code that will take you directly to all our information. A big shout out to our partners, Baden Sports and SNA Sports. Join us next week for Master Coaches Weekly Buzz. Follow us on Facebook at Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. Our weekly buzz shows are on YouTube, and you may access these by going directly to our Instagram account. Click on the link in the bio and enjoy listening to leaders in our sport address current issues and trends. Now, be sure to register by November 6th for the 2020 ABCA Virtual Convention. Save $50 and get the first opportunity for small group training sessions and career appointments. Remember, after our host today finishes up, stay on Facebook Live and join our Master Coaches Buzz Reaction for an opportunity to hear and engage our most recent talks.